Parrish. Welcome back. CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Kyle Boone is here with me. Strong jaw. If you're watching on YouTube, be Brandon Davies. Smash a little bit. And if you haven't already subscribed to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball Podcast, please do that anywhere you subscribe to podcasts like Apple and Spotify. Let's get into it. And let me first start by apologizing to any of our live listeners. I know most people get to this whenever they get to this, but we do have a live audience every time we do one of these. And we were supposed to start maybe 10, 15 minutes ago. And the reason we didn't start 10 or 15 minutes ago is because I spent my Friday morning committing crimes. Strong Joe, I've been committing crimes this morning. I've been ticketed.
You got a ticket. Were you spreading deers in people's front yard? What's going on?
I did not hit a deer or do anything to a deer really in a while. It's been a minute, although transparency, my wife did hit a deer roughly 2 weeks ago. Her car is in a collision center right now.
Holy cow. She all right?
She murdered a deer unintentionally. It was the deer's fault, if you want to know the truth. Like, she was in a car on a road. Then the deer ran onto the road. The deer's not supposed to be on the road. The car is. You know how this thing works. Yes. So, no, had nothing to do with the deer. I don't know how much you pay attention to what goes on down here in Memphis, Tennessee. To the extent people know anything about Memphis, it's probably that Elvis used to live here, that John Morant now lives here, and then we have like some crime issues. If this is my hometown, I love this place, but we struggle. Like the statistics aren't great. All right, if you could Google it, the president sent the National Guard here, right or wrong. They've been hanging out. They were here, and so I'm part of the problem. Is what I'm trying to tell you. I didn't know that I was. I didn't know I was part of the problem, but I was reminded this morning I'm part of the problem. I was just driving around Memphis this morning committing a crime. You curious at all about what crime I committed?
If I were to take one guess, I mean, it would have definitely been something deer related. So yeah, I mean, you got to tell us.
I didn't do anything with a deer. I was not speeding. Today is the final day of the Jeff Calkins show on 92.9 FM ESPN in Memphis. Jeff Calkins is my former colleague at the Commercial Appeal, longtime columnist here in Memphis. He's an institution in the city. And he and I did radio together for years, and today is his last show. And so he said, hey, would you like to be on he invited me to be a guest on his last show. And I said, I'd love to do that. In fact, I'm honored that you would even ask. The problem is our shows kind of run at the same time. So how are we going to do this? He said, we can just pre-tape it. You could, on your way to FedEx Forum, you just, we'll call you and we can just chit chat like we used to. I said, that's fine. And so Bluetooth is great, man. It's an amazing technology step that we've made, but still for radio purposes, like putting a phone right up to your ear is going to be better than anything you're doing in Bluetooth. So I had a phone up to my ear, and in this crime-ridden city of Memphis, Tennessee, that's what they were focused on this Friday morning. I was driving around just like this, and they said, you can't do that. They pulled me over. He said, you know why I pulled you over? And I was like, it could be any number of things. You tell me. It's too early for me to be taking a pop quiz, officer. You just go ahead and spoil it. You tell me what I did, and I'll plead guilty right now if we can just keep this thing moving. He said, Tennessee's a hands-free state now. And I said, I was not aware. And he said, well, yeah, that's the truth. And I said, what do you want me to do about it now? I guess I committed a crime. I got a court date on February 13th, KB.
Unbelievable. I would have guessed speeding was my second guess.
Here's what's hilarious. I'm ticketed right now. I have a court date for holding a phone in my hand. You realize I was driving to work. My car was driving me. I wasn't even doing anything. I don't even have to have my hands on the wheel. It's not illegal for me to not have my hands on the wheel, but it is illegal for my hands to be on the phone. Try to make sense of that. Make sense of it.
Sounds like you got a good argument.
You know what? I should just follow the law, right? You know what? I'm not above the law. I shouldn't be driving around thinking I'm above the law. I'm part of the problem. I think there's a little too much of people thinking they're above the law going on in this country these days. All right. So maybe this is me. Maybe this is me. This is a lesson we all should learn. None of us are above the law. Not even me, driving around with an iPhone to my ear. How are you on this Friday morning? You weren't ticketed. Have you committed a crime?
Not that I'm aware of. I've moved like maybe 15 feet from my bed to my office, so no chances of me, getting any tickets this morning. So
All right. Well, hey, it's still relatively early. So I wish you luck getting through the rest of let's see how many of us can get through the rest of the day without committing a crime. I feel
Lordy,
like
Lord,
I've committed all the crimes I'm going to commit today. I feel like I'm done. I feel like
you're crimed out.
I'm crimed out for the day. Talk to me on Saturday. Maybe I'll be ready to break some more laws, but I feel like I've broken all the laws I'm going to break today. Let's talk SEC. That's where Vanderbilt remains undefeated. Since last time we talked on this podcast, they went out and beat Alabama at home. So now they're 15-0. I want to start you with a simple question. Vanderbilt got that win over Alabama. I moved them into the top 5 of the top 25-1. Are the Commodores at this point, are you willing to describe them as legitimate national championship contenders?
Yes, I think we should have been describing them as national title contenders before this, but yes, going and beating Alabama at home by 6 points, improving to 15-0 on the season, one of only a handful of teams still unbeaten at this juncture in the season. They're absolutely national title contenders. And it's not just that they're 15-0, right? Like 12 of their 15 wins have come by double figures. They're extremely effective on offense. They're 27th in 3-point percentage, shooting 38%, 6th in 2-point shooting percentage. They are very, very efficient on both ends of the floor. I was watching Mark Byington earlier this week on Rothstein's pod, and I thought it was pretty interesting, talking about like how he learned to coach offense. Very, very much like comes off as a oh shucks type guy. And he said, look, I'm just a nerd. Like I pick up things from different coaches. Like he was trying to get Brian Earl, who's William and Mary's head coach, onto a Zoom call to like pick his brain about what he said was like just trying to learn more about basketball. So like, he has the aw shucks personality, but he's like Mark Byington might be that dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, it might be a situation where, we're talking about a top 10 coach trying to pick William and Mary's brain, like the William and Mary's coach brain. So like, I think what they've done is very impressive. And I also think the underlying metrics are absolutely sustainable. Vanderbilt has been fantastic to start the season. Vanderbilt can win the SEC. Vanderbilt can win the national championship.
They were picked 11th in the preseason SEC poll, as I wrote in the top 25-1 on Thursday morning. I guess that made sense at the time. Like, I don't remember hearing about the SEC preseason poll has been released. Florida's 1, Kentucky's 2, Vanderbilt's 11, and I'm like, oh, that's crazy. I don't know that it registered as crazy with anybody. And then they start through their non-league schedule, and the efficiency numbers are excellent. You even if they're not on your radar, they jump onto it because you can't go to Ken Palm or Bart Torvik or Evan Mee or anywhere else without seeing them. Like oh, okay, I didn't know if they were going to be any good, but this seems to suggest that they might be. And then they just keep winning, and then they just keep winning. And if you were a skeptic, it was always tied to, okay, sure, they're beating people badly, and the computer numbers are impressive, but where are the big signature wins? Because before Wednesday night, they had not even played a team all season that at the time of the game, they had a number next to their name, AP ranking. And so if you wanted to be skeptical, you could. If you want to know why Vandy wasn't lumped into the undefeated 1-2-3 conversation with Arizona, Michigan, and Iowa State, that was the reason. Iowa State's got a big win at Purdue. What was Vanderbilt's big win before Wednesday? Fair question, I guess. But then they go out and they play an Alabama team that nobody has any questions about. I think everybody agrees Alabama could win the SEC. Everybody agrees Alabama could go to a Final Four. Everybody agrees Alabama could theoretically win a national championship. Nate Oates is, I think widely regarded as a top 10 coach in the sport at this point. Like, nobody has questions about Alabama. So when you go out and beat them to keep a 0 in the loss column, get your 15th victory, then the last thing, or at least among the last things the skeptics had to hold against you, that's now off the board. I guess if somebody wants to say, well, I'll believe it when I see them go on the road and beat a top 20 team on the road, that's fine, but that's probably coming at some point. Like, they look the part, and they now have the big signature win. Who will win the SEC? That probably won't be decided for a while. It might not be clear for several weeks, if not a month. But can Vanderbilt do it? That's not a question anymore, regardless of where they were picked in the preseason. 11th, again, to be clear. That team's not only good enough to win that league, it's good enough to win anything we're playing for, it appears.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy, GP? Like, this is a Vanderbilt program that historically is just like, let's just be frank, this is not a SEC juggernaut in basketball, right? Or even really in football. And Byington has, in the interview with Rothstein, said like he had to go and disarm some labels, is how he put it, when recruiting to Vanderbilt, because you think of Vanderbilt synonymous with like excellent education, right? Like, if you go to Vanderbilt, you're going to get a fantastic degree, but it's not necessarily like oh man, juggernaut basketball program Vanderbilt, right? And that has been hard for Vanderbilt to overcome. That's been hard for, I think, probably a number of like Stanford or Michigan, like some really proud programs who are really good on the education front, but maybe not the best, in terms of athletics. They've had to overcome that. And, the way in which they've done that, or at least so far, the way in which they've done that, and Byington talked about this in the interview, was like, they have a ton of continuity. They brought back Devin McLaughlin. They brought back Tyler Tanner. They brought back Tyler Nickel. They have continuity. They're trusting in the guys that they brought back, and they've brought in some guys who they feel can fit their system. And they're playing a selfless style basketball that has obviously worked so far. We'll see how the SEC shakes out, but to get a signature win over a very good Alabama team, I think is obviously going to bode well for them. And moving forward, like, I think probably projected to win the SEC. And I think maybe in a year in which the SEC is absolutely taking a step back from last year, that to me seems like where we are at right now. A team that was picked 11th in the preseason could legitimately win the SEC.
Yeah, I think the roster continuity, we're seeing that throughout the sport. I mean, the number one team in the country, at least the top 25 and one, is Michigan. And they're led by a first-year transfer into the program in Yaxel Lindenborg, but they've also got returning players playing prominent roles on that roster. That's clearly also the case at Arizona. It's also the case at Iowa State. It's also the case at UConn. There's a balance to this stuff, but I think what we're seeing for the most part is that it is preferable if you do have some important players that carry over from one year to the next. Can you be good with an entirely new roster? Yes. Can you be good with a first-year player in your program being the face of it? Yes. But I think what we're seeing on average is that it's better when your best players are not in their first year in your program, and that's clearly the case at Vanderbilt. And this is sort of, I think, also an example that you can hold up in this era of college athletics as just a reminder that history doesn't matter as much as it used to matter. Like, Norlander and I got into a conversation on Tuesdays, Eye on College Basketball show that we did on CBS Sports Network, about what would be the equivalent in men's basketball to what Kurt Signetti is doing in football at Indiana right now. And, we talked about, perhaps it would be just something like some 62-year-old mid-major coach, former D2 coach, getting the Penn State basketball job and turning it into a 1 seed in the tournament, or the Washington, you could name it. And we were sort of talking about it from different angles. And he brought up Ole Miss. And he was like, well, if you look at the history of Ole Miss, they haven't done much there in the sport of men's basketball. Mm-hmm. And my counterpoint to using Ole Miss as the example of this would be, whatever Ole Miss has accomplished in the past in this sport, it is now set up to do big things in this sport. They've got a respected basketball coach. They've got a beautiful on-campus facility. and they've got real resources like money behind it. Like there's no reason or no great reason you can't be great at basketball at Ole Miss right now. There are reasons you can't be great at basketball at other places, but history is almost thrown out the window now.
Yep.
Do you have the right coach? I think it starts there. The right resources to support the coach and give him the ability to roster build, and then do you have the facilities and all the bells and all that stuff? But if you do, I don't really care how many NCAA tournaments you didn't go to in the 80s or the 90s or 20 years ago, or really what you've done. It's a whole new game. And we're seeing it in football. Vanderbilt had a Heisman Trophy candidate and was in, the conversation to be in the college football playoff. And you're seeing it in basketball right now. We are having a conversation on a podcast about Vanderbilt perhaps being the best team in the SEC. And by definition, if you're that, you're in the conversation to be the best team in the country. So it looks like Vanderbilt has figured out what everybody at the power conference level should be trying to figure out. How do we get the right coach for our program and then support him in ways that allows him to do what is clearly possible? And in Nashville, Mark Byington is obviously that guy, and it's one of the better stories in the sport. Let's stay in the SEC before we move on. Kentucky. If Vanderbilt is being held up as one of the best stories, Kentucky is undeniably one of the most frustrating. Wildcats are now 9-6, midweek loss to Missouri at home. They have a roster that reportedly costs $22 million. KB, are they going to be able to turn this around, or is this going to go down as the most disappointing team in college basketball 2025, 2026?
Oh boy. That is the question. I wrote a piece on December 10th. This was a month ago, after Kentucky was 6-4 to start the season. It felt like the sky was falling. And at the time, my conclusion was, yes, the sky is actually falling. We are a month ahead now. Kentucky is currently 9-6, and the sky feels like it's still falling in Lexington. And maybe it's just the way that they're losing. Like, for example, earlier this week, they were up 8 with under 5 to play. They end up losing by 5 to Missouri. They're 0-2 in SEC play. This could end up being an NCAA tournament team. I think I'll put that out there. And maybe that's not even a hot take, but the expectations coming into the season and what the reality is currently in Lexington is so jarring that it's almost impossible to square. Like, as you mentioned, a roster that was worth well over $20 million, preseason number 9 team. They play with frequently, hustle plays that go to the other team. There's personnel issues. They are 10th out of 16 SEC teams in 3-point shooting percentage. Their offensive efficiency has plummeted since I wrote that story a month ago. They were 31st. Now they're 47th nationally. That is 12th among SEC teams. They're just okay at shooting the basketball. I think if you're spending $20+ million, you probably expect better than just okay. And worse, they're not really a good defensive team. They don't make up for it with, a playmaking defense to get out in transition, which I think is ironically one of their strengths. They're not elite at generating second chance opportunities on the offensive glass. There are just so many issues for this Kentucky team, and maybe getting right with Jalen Lowe and Jaden Quaintance and finally gelling together, things could eventually come together, GP, but I'm a little bit skeptical. And, I think what we've seen so far in a 9-6 start is Kentucky kind of is what it is at this point. Are you buying stock for Kentucky, or where are you at on the Wildcats right now?
I'm more skeptical now than I've been at any other point in this season, because I was at the CBS Sports Classic down in Atlanta, State Farm Arena, and that's when they beat St. John's. Yeah. Seemed good at the time. Now everybody beats St. John's, so who even knows what that means? But that was the first time in the second half that Jalen Lowe and Jaden Quaintance had and Diabate had ever been on the court together. At the time, you could reasonably describe them as the 3 most important Kentucky players, and they had never been on the basketball court together in a game until the second half of the game against St. John's. And go look at what happened in the box score. They just took off, and they looked awesome. And it was like, okay, if you can get that, Now you got something. And you can read that column, several weeks later, and I don't know how well it holds up because, they just don't look right. And I don't know whether it's a byproduct of you just went out and bought a lot of talented basketball players with little regard for how well they fit together or how much they care about the place at which they're playing, or if it's just that they're not good enough, period. But it clearly doesn't work at this point. They played 15 games, and I think you to the extent you've been impressed by them at all, it was like for a half against St. John's. Outside of that, they've been confusing, and I guess I wouldn't rule out anything. It's still early January, and it is still a roster filled with talented basketball players, including Quaintance, who I think everybody projects as a lottery pick at this point. But I know Kentucky fans are fed up. Like, I see the tweets sometimes, and it doesn't mean that Mark Pope's job is in jeopardy. Just because somebody tweets that doesn't make it so. And if somebody suggested it was actually a possibility, I would push back on that. Like, this guy is a talented and gifted, skilled basketball coach. I would not pull the trigger on an alum after 2 years, but the fan base expected better than this. And if he doesn't turn it around, those conversations, to the extent that they're happening, they will just get louder because, I was in studio past couple of nights, Tuesday, Wednesday night, at least, with, among others, Avery Johnson, the former NBA coach of the year. And he was like, listen, in Lexington, they just need to calm down. And that's great advice. But like, that's not something they do in Lexington. They don't calm down about the men's basketball program. So every week that goes by that team is not looking like what it was supposed to look. Preseason top 10 team, number 9, I think, in the AP poll. Right. Every time it doesn't look the way it's supposed to look, people loudly ask why.
And we're talking obviously about the SEC. We started here with Vanderbilt. I think it's interesting, the contrast between those two teams specifically, because as I alluded to, Byington talked with Rothstein earlier this week. That video can be found on our YouTube channel. Byington pointed to like the offensive success as a byproduct of selfless basketball, selfless players who don't care who gets the credit for contributing on offense. I feel like that is the antithesis to how Kentucky plays right now. It's not that Kentucky has a bunch of selfish players necessarily, but Vanderbilt is very much a move the ball. Let's find the best shot. It doesn't matter exactly. Are we prioritizing? Let's get, one player, X amount of shots from this spot. It's let's go and find the most efficient play regardless of who it is run for. And Kentucky is just, they're disjointed on offense. They're not together on defense. And it's even more confusing when on paper, this was a recruiting class, a transfer class that many believed had a chance to take Kentucky, from a preseason number 9 team to legitimately winning a national championship potential. And we are not there yet. I think, going from that point in the preseason to where we are now, which is like, are we sure Kentucky's going to make the NCAA tournament, is a pretty good indication of like just how sideways things have gone and just how quickly things have gone sideways here 15 games into the season.
If you're curious, Kentucky back inside Rupp Arena this weekend. Saturday night, they are hosting Mississippi State. That'll be on the SEC Network. Vanderbilt also at home this weekend, noon Central, 1 o'clock Eastern on Saturday. They'll host LSU on the SEC Network inside Memorial Gym. Let's move on. Kyle Boone, it's nice to have him here because he's like one of my favorite NBA draft analysts in the whole wide world. So while we have him, I'm going to pop some questions to him about a few of the elite prospects. We're going to start with Darryn Peterson. We'll do that next. First, though, give me a word from our partners.
The new era of UFC on Paramount Plus comes out swinging. Yes. Show-stopping highlight machine Justin Gaethje collides with Liverpool phenom Paddy Pimblett in a must-see main event for the interim lightweight belt.
This is how I get down.
And Hall of Famer Amanda Nunes returns.
She's the best ever.
To take on bantamweight champion Kayla Harrison in the biggest women's title fight of all time.
Let's go.
24, Saturday, January 24th, only on Paramount Plus.
You've got your mock draft over at cbssports.com. I believe it was published just before Christmas. Darryn Peterson, you have him going number 1. Does whatever is going on with his legs bother you, concern you at all?
I see it. I note it. I know it's happening, GP, but for me, it's just noise. And I think probably for NBA teams, it's just noise too, until they're able to actually do their own research, dive into the medicals, do interviews, and figure out what in the world is happening. Like Cooper Flagg had cramping issues last year at Duke, right? And that was like actually a pretty prominent storyline for a little while. Paolo Banchero struggled cramping at Duke. Maybe it's a Duke thing. I don't know. Darryn Peterson's struggling with cramping at Kansas, and he has like a hamstring injury. There's been top prospects from knees to ankles to soft tissues like hamstrings. I think it can affect everyone. So it doesn't necessarily factor into my evaluation. I think for me, GP, like if you follow the story, it just seems like kind of weird how it's been portrayed, which almost I think, and I'm going to sound like I'm Peterson's PR guy, but it does feel a little bit like it's unfair in a way that like, all right, have you ever had a hamstring injury? Because like, trying to play through a hamstring injury is really, really hard, and they can be tricky. Like sometimes you feel 100% and then sometimes you feel a tweak and you're like, okay, well, I can't go. Well, I feel like it's one of those things where he's clearly not 100%. He's trying to play through it. He's tried to be successful, and he's had like stints where he's looked awesome. The truth is that he's probably still not 100% and may not be 100%. So I don't know. The whole situation with Darryn Peterson, I think it's just weird. It's just weird. But I think if you chalk it up to Peterson's not 100%, he's still trying to give it a go. It doesn't really factor into my final evaluation, other than to note that like, okay, he had some soft tissue injuries and he tried to play through them. Didn't exactly work out, but still, regardless, he's been in the minutes that he's played very, very effective for Kansas.
It's weird because it's unusual at the college level to have a prospect, in and out of games, taking himself out of games, telling you he doesn't feel like he's going to go, minutes restrictions. But this is all very normal at the NBA level. Like, I wonder how many people even know this. Like, quite literally on the same night that Darryn Peterson made 3 free throws at the end of regulation to get a game to overtime, and then did not play in the extra period at all because he was feeling something in his leg and or because he had hit a certain number of minutes. Like literally on the same night, Victor Wembanyama played against the Memphis Grizzlies. The game went to overtime, and he did not play in the overtime.
Yep.
Like he didn't close the game because of a minutes restriction because he was coming off of an injury. Like, and it's not even a story in the NBA. Like, it's just like, well, yeah, that's the way they handled that situation.
Mm-hmm.
What, like he played in regulation, but then he didn't play. And well, yeah, that's the way they handle that. That he was coming off of an injury. He didn't feel right. We have a plan going into this. And so this, like, it's not even a thing. Like that wasn't even a headline anywhere outside of San Antonio, probably, because it's a very normal thing at the NBA level. But at the college level, we just haven't really dealt with this too much because, in the NBA, they play so frequently and the game is often played at a faster pace that these like soft tissue injuries pop up all the time. And it's like somebody felt something in their calf or their hamstring. He's out for 2 weeks and we'll reevaluate it then. It's just like almost without exception, that's the way it goes. At the collegiate level, we just don't deal with it as often because they don't play as often. They don't play as fast. They don't deal with this particular type of thing. But obviously it's bothered Darryn Peterson. I'm with you. If I were an evaluator, I'm a general manager of an NBA franchise. I want to know why this is happening, but it doesn't move me off of him. If I 2 months ago identified him as, if I'm picking first, that's who I'm taking, I'm not concerned about what we've seen keep him off the court in any sort of meaningful way. What I'm most interested in is that when he has been healthy, he has looked awesome. When he has been healthy, he has taken over basketball games and looked like a guy who could, run through an NCAA tournament and take a team that otherwise probably shouldn't sniff a Final Four to a Final Four. Like he's that kind of talent. And if you had him going number 1 2 months ago, whatever's going on with his legs right now probably should not move you off of it. Let me ask you about Kingston Flemings. You got him going 19th to the Grizzlies. On behalf of the franchise, just let me tell you, I'll take it. We'll
You're
take
welcome.
that now. Right? But is that a proper representation on January 9th of where you think he would be picked, or is that just something you did on December 24th? But ooh, buddy, he's moving up draft boards now.
Yeah, it's definitely the latter. Our boy Adam Finkelstein's actually moved him up to number 7 on the CBS Sports Big Board. That's probably closer to where he's actually being viewed right now. Actually, Sam Vecini has him at number 5 on his board. He's looked awesome for Houston. Like, legitimately looks like a star. And, you know, it's one thing, like, to look really good, to put up big numbers, and for your team to be good, but you're playing on a team, right, with Milos Uzan, with Chris Sinak, with JoJo Tugler, like all 3 potential first rounders. And Flemings is averaging a team high 16.1 points per game, a team high 5.1 assists per game, a team high 2.1 steals per game. He's shooting 43% from 3. Good size, excellent scorer, playmaker on defense. All of those descriptions, GP, like, that's a lottery pick. That's just a lottery pick. And, you know, the on-off splits have bared out that he is absolutely an impact player for Houston. Houston's 9.0 points per 100 possessions better with him on the floor versus off. And he's very young, obviously. His game is like, you just watch him and you're like, okay, I don't exactly know what I'm watching, but this guy has it, you know, and like the numbers definitely bear that out. He's been very effective as a true freshman for Houston, still very young. This is a guy who is screaming up boards right now and is in the mix, like, legitimately. You know, a month ago we were talking about him as a top 20 prospect. Now he's legitimately played his way into being a potential top 5 pick in the 2026 NBA draft.
Yeah, that's right. Like, if everybody still has a top 3 in some order of Darryn Peterson, AJ DeBonsa, and Cameron Boozer, Kingston Flemings has got to be in any conversation happening outside of those 3.
Yeah.
So you could reasonably, I mean, at this point, I don't want to put any ceilings on him. You could reasonably put him wherever you want, but I wouldn't be surprised to see mock drafts have him as high as 4. And when basically any pre-Christmas mock draft gets updated, you're going to probably see him in the top 10. Everything I've heard from people who work in NBA front offices is, at this point, if the draft were tonight, Kingston Flemings would, it would be a surprise if 10 players were selected before him. Let me ask you about Cameron Boozer, then we'll move on to the final 4 and 1. He is clearly, or at least statistically in a lot of ways, college basketball's best player this season. If we were voting Wooden Award today, I think he would be number 1 on almost everybody's ballot. But he still isn't number 1 in most people's mock drafts. Why? What is it about Cameron Boozer that is so crystal clear he's awesome at this level, but people think it's not obvious to them he shouldn't be the first pick of the draft?
That's a great question. I think it's in part because Darryn Peterson and AJ DeBonsa have been fantastic in their own ways. Like, just for the numbers perspective for Peterson, I know we talked about the injuries, but per CBB analytics, he's 100th percentile in scoring. He's 100th percentile in player efficiency rating. And yeah, maybe, you know, Kansas hasn't figured out a way to play with him, and he hasn't figured out a way to play with Kansas yet, but he's still been very efficient as a scorer. DeBonsa, you know, looks like he's got like a build-a-body physique. He looks like a Greek god. He's an insane athlete. He's been very effective as a scorer. You know, just checks a lot of boxes in terms of the physical frame. So, like, DeBonsa and Peterson, in the way in which you like evaluate those type of prospects, Peterson a guard, DeBonsa as, you know, kind of a wing, they've been great. And so Boozer, I think that part has hurt him. Those 2 guys have been excellent. And also, like, in general, I think when you're evaluating NBA draft, like, the general public probably just gravitates more toward wings and guards, because it's hard to talk yourself over a scoring wing or an athletic wing like Debanza or Peterson when you're evaluating Boozer. That being said, like, yes, I have him number 3 on my mock draft. I have him number 1 on my own board. I think he's the best prospect in this class. He doesn't have the insane physique, right? Like, he's not the same electric scorer like Peterson or, the athletic marvel like Debanza, but he's a 4-time high school state champion. He's a winner at every level. He's the son of Carlos Boozer. There's like a built-in pedigree. He's insanely productive at Duke. He leads the team in points, rebounds, assists, steals. And Duke is fantastic. Like, they're top 10 in offensive and defensive efficiency. This is a team that's probably going to win the ACC. They're 14-1. I think at some point, GP, there might come a time when that actually flips. Like, I don't know if I would predict it, but it won't surprise me if Boozer continues to put up the numbers he has, and he continues to be viewed as the clear, like, number 3 in the top 3 pecking order of Peterson, Debanza, and Boozer, specifically because whatever's happening with Peterson is just like turning some people off fairly or unfairly. So yeah, like, I think it's an interesting kind of test case in how you evaluate the NBA draft, what you prioritize. But Boozer, just like the personality, the attitude, the swagger he plays with, like all the intangible stuff that maybe NBA teams really value, I think he's going to like check the boxes times a million. And there could be a time between now and the NBA draft where people are viewing Boozer as the number 1 prospect in this class, and perhaps like sooner rather than later.
You can find KB's latest mock draft. It's over at CBSSports.com. He's got Cameron Boozer 1. Let me confirm it. Is it Darryn Peterson? He's got Cameron Boozer 3rd. Is it Darryn Peterson 1, Debanza 2? That's your order.
Yes.
I think that's most people's order at this point. Again, you can find his mock draft. Latest one, it's over at CBSSports.com. When we come back, it's time for the Final 4-1 presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. First, though, let's get one more word from our partners.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
Time for the Final 4-1 presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Josh, you want to get in my ear in the softest tone you got? Why don't you tell me how good I am at this?
Softest tone I got.
Take it down a level. Take it down a notch.
Take it down, or do I need to whisper? Is that what you want? I feel like you've had a hectic morning. You could use this. I feel like you could.
Well, Josh, for people who don't know, like you're a Memphian yourself, and so you know what Jeff Calkins means to the city. And so I was really looking forward to joining him on his last show. And next thing I know, about 15, 20 minutes into the conversation, like right as we were getting going, I got blue lights on, and I'm like, oh no, what have I done? I was out here committing crimes in Memphis, Tennessee. You know about our crime problems down here. It's been a struggle for a little while, and turns out I thought I was part of the solution. I'd like to think of myself as part of the solution. Like, I'm going to be somebody who tries to make this place better. In whatever ways I can do that, I'm going to use whatever tools I have to try to make this place better. Turns out I'm part of the problem. I'm just out there committing crimes like everybody else. Look at me. I got a court date, February 13th.
God bless.
Were you still on the phone with Jeff when? I mean, I guess you had to have been. You think it'll make it on the show? That'd be pretty funny.
Oh, he was. Oh, it's perfect. It's perfect for the last Jeff Calkins show. It was like, all right, GP. Before I get you out of here, I do just want to get you on the record for some things like going into the future. And let's start with Penny Hardaway. Do you think Penny Hardaway is going to be the coach at Memphis this time next year? And I said, well, Jeff, and blue lights, boo, boo. And I was like, this is great. Like, I think I got to let you go. I mean, I've been watching the news. There ain't no way I'm going to try to argue with this officer. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you're paying attention to the news, but I ain't trying. Like, I don't think this is the time to be disobeying it. Like, I was like, hands up, tell me what to do. I got to let you go, Jeff Calkins. He pulled up to me, and he said, he was like, you know what you've done? I was like, I honestly don't know what I've done. You tell me. You talking on the phone. I was like, I've committed the crime of phone talking this morning. I've committed the crime of phone talking. Like you can't have your phone in your hand. Why? Like, I get it, whatever, it's fine. But like, I literally have a car that I don't have to drive. I could get to work like this. I could just drive like this. It would be fine. Like, it doesn't matter. My car knows exactly how to get me where I'm going. It's good at it. It's very good at it. So I could go like this, and think about this for a second. This is hilarious. If I went like this, drove to work, I'd be fine. I would have had no issues this morning. But because I instead drove to work like this, I almost went to jail. This is illegal. This is not. This is illegal in Memphis. This is not. I don't know what to do, man. But
I feel like you could at least if you're going to get pulled over, texting seems like the most egregious, right? Like, this is less distracting than this. Like, I know both are, against the law or whatever, but I feel like if you're going to enforce it, at least enforce like texting only, or like no scrolling,
I think if we're ranking dangerous things behind the wheel, texting would rank higher than talking on the phone, holding it to your ear. I think that's true. I think that's widely accepted as true. We're going to believe it to be true.
Yeah.
We're going
to it's not that much different than like hand on the wheel, like, just kind of leaned over, relaxed, hand on the head.
I didn't feel like I was part of the problem, but I'm also not going to sit here and act like I'm above the law. I think there's a little too much of that going on in the country right now. People thinking they're above the law. I don't want to be a part of that problem. So I'll show up in court if I have to. February 13th. Hey, KB, what are you doing on February 13th? You might have to host an Eye on College basketball podcast.
I think I'm hosting a podcast February 13th.
All right, because I got a court date. I'm gonna have to go to court. All right. What a goofy Friday morning. Hey, it's time for the Final 4 and 1 presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Josh, get in my ear. And in the softest tone you got, I want you to tell me how good I am at this.
Well, I've just uploaded a present for you into StreamYard, so I'm going to play this for you just real quick, and then I'll send it to you after the show. OGP, okay. You're so good at this. Look at that. Now it's just in StreamYard. We can play it over and over again. OGP,
dulcet tones.
You're so good at this.
That was beautiful.
That was sweet. What's the record? Give me a record, and if it's not good, just change it. Make it sound good.
GP, you're 23, 21, and 1 so far. To Norlanders 21, 23, and 1. And so that's you winning in case
you need clarity. I'm killing him. I'm like the Vanderbilt of picking games on the Eye on College Basketball podcast. I'm like the Mark Byington of picking games on the Eye on College Basketball.
Is that right? That's
what I feel like. I think Norlanders like Kentucky, and I'm like Vanderbilt. He puts all this thought into his picking games. That's the equivalent of spending all that money, and the results are disappointing. Me, I just trust buildings or pick mascots, whatever, and I'm absolutely blowing him out just like every single year. Game 1, Saturday, noon Eastern. It's number 10 Nebraska at Indiana inside Tom Crean Hall. Should have appreciated Tom Crean a little more when you had him. He was winning outright Big Ten championships. Been a while since you had one of those. You can watch this one on the Big Ten Network. KenPom's got it. Indiana -3. The undefeated Huskers, underdogs on the road. How you going to act?
I'm going to act like I respect KenPom. Indiana wins this one. Nebraska's undefeated run ends at 15-0. Cornhuskers, they've won by single possession 4 times, including 2 games in a row. Indiana has not lost at home this season. 4 straight wins. Lamar Wilkerson playing like a star. Give me the Hoosiers.
This is no time to get off of the Nebraska bandwagon.
I'm hopping off.
Not with Rink Mast operating at a high level. This is one of the best stories in the sport right there with Vanderbilt. The other undefeated teams, with exception of Miami, Ohio, perhaps, were kind of like, I don't know that we expected them to have a 0 in the loss column on January 9th, but they were supposed to be good. We assumed Michigan would be good. Arizona would be a Final Four contender. Iowa State under TJ with this core has been good without exception. Nebraska, Vanderbilt are kind of the surprises of the list of undefeateds. And, so then people start asking why, what happened? Well, like if you go back and look at the team 2 years ago, Reek Mast was an important player on that team. And then he missed all of last season. Like they didn't have a guy they were counting on last season, for a single minute. But now he's back. He's their leading scorer now and having the best year of his college career, 16.3 points, 6.6 rebounds. I will take Nebraska plus the 3 on Saturday at Indiana. Game 2, Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern. It's Wisconsin at number 2, Michigan, inside the Ray Jackson Center. You can watch that on CBS. It's America's most watched network of stars. Kim Palm's got it. Woo! Michigan minus 19.
It's a big number, GP. That's a big number. 19. I mean, this is a Michigan team that leads the country in scoring margin, so it seems about right. Michigan did win by only 2 on the road over Penn State earlier in the week. I'm officially on record as a Michigan skeptic. I realize Michigan has been dominant for most of the last 2 months, and they've beat their 3 ranked opponents by an average of 37 points. I think Wisconsin keeps it within 19 points. Michigan wins. Wisconsin keeps it within the number. That's a big number.
I will lay the 19 points, but it is like it's a huge number. And just when you frame it this way, it illustrates or helps illustrate just how overwhelming Michigan has been for the most part this season. That barely got it victory over Penn State midweek, notwithstanding. Wisconsin's 42nd at KenPom and a 19-point underdog to Michigan. Like Wisconsin is a top 45 team. Like that's a borderline NCAA tournament team. 19 from a power conference, 19-point underdog to Michigan. I'll lay the points just in the spirit of rooting for the top 25 and 1. Every day you have Michigan number 1. I think it's like 30, 31 now. There's an Arizona fan out there telling you don't know what you're doing. So I can't imagine how many will be waiting on me if Michigan were to, not blow somebody out. So I'm going to take Michigan minus the 19 and root for the top 25 and 1. Game 3 Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern, number 24 SMU at number 6 Duke inside Greg Paulus Indoor Stadium. You can watch it on ESPN. Kim Palm's got this one, Duke minus 11.
Duke minus 11. And this is an SMU team that beat North Carolina by 14 just a week ago. And I wrote about it. North Carolina's defense in that game was historically stinky. Boopy Miller went full Boopy Miller. I think I'm gonna lay the points here. Duke coming off an 11-point road win over Louisville. Their defense is improving. This is one of only 3 teams in college basketball top 10 in offensive and defensive efficiency. Lay the points here. I'm gonna trust Duke. I'm gonna be a building truster here with the Blue Devils.
Can't give somebody named Boopy 11 points. That's outrageous. I'm taking SMU plus the points on Saturday at Duke. Game 4 Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Number 15 Arkansas at Auburn inside Chris Porter Arena. You can watch it on ESPN. Kim Palm's got it. Auburn minus 1. John Calipari's Razorbacks slight underdog on the road.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Auburn here. Take them to win. Take them to cover. Auburn is 0-2 to start SEC play. They desperately need a win. I think they get it. Auburn, of course, coming off that heartbreaking loss in which their buzzer beater did not count. Well, it counted and then it didn't count. They've lost. They've got losses. They lost by 1 to Houston in November. Overtime loss to Georgia last week. Last second loss to Texas A&M. Arkansas going to the jungle. I think the jungle is going to be absolutely ferocious after what happened against Texas A&M. Auburn gets it done here.
Darius Acuff. We talked about a couple of the elite freshmen earlier. Kingston Flemings, Darryn Peterson, Cameron Boozer. Acuff, is it clear in your mind? Forgive me, I don't know where you have him in your mock draft, but most people have him top 10. Is he a top 10 guy to you?
Top 10 guy to me. I think probably was a top 10 guy when I did my mock draft on December 23rd. He's been awesome, and the numbers have played out in a way that Arkansas is not only a little bit better when he's on the floor, they're a lot better when he's on the floor. And borderline not an NCAA tournament team when he's playing. So he's been awesome. He is elevating the talent around him at Arkansas. And yeah, like if Arkansas goes and wins this on the road, it will almost certainly be because Acuff has an A+ game on the road.
I'll take them. Razorbacks plus a point on the road. I like this Arkansas team. I know that this season, year one at Arkansas was a roller coaster for Cal. Terrible start, up and down, injuries, all that stuff. Then they win some games in the NCAA tournament, so it doesn't feel like it was as uneven as it was. But this season, there's been none of that. And some of it is, like, I think he's got a pretty good recipe here. Like, they had roster continuity. They carried guys over. They've got the elite freshmen. They've got NBA talent. Like, they check a lot of the boxes I think you need to check to have a team that can compete for a national championship. I'm not going to pick them to win it, but that's a team that if you were thinking, if you had any thoughts that year two at Arkansas for John was going to be similar to year one, like that seems like it's over. Like, this is a solid, consistent, reliable basketball team led by a 5-star freshman who has been tremendous. I think they get a win on the road this weekend. I'm going to take Arkansas plus the 1. They win it outright at Auburn on Saturday. Norlander picked the N1 as he does. He went with Tennessee at Florida. So Saturday, noon Eastern, number 21 Tennessee at Florida. Inside, I don't know, let's call it the Joakim Noah Center. Ken Palm's got it. Florida -4. You can watch it on ESPN.
I'm gonna be a building truster here. I trust Florida to get this one done at home. Tennessee's been like, I don't really know exactly what to expect from Tennessee. I mean, they've had some pretty good highs and some weird lows. Coming off on a win at home over Texas by 14 points, pretty resounding effort there. But yeah, Florida's been pretty good at home. I still believe this Florida team is way better than what it has shown so far, which they're 10-5. I think most people expected them to be quite a bit better than they've been. They're unranked right now, coming off a national championship. But yeah, I think they get a nice win here over Tennessee team that is obviously ranked, and they need it. Florida needs it. I think they get it.
If you are looking at NBA prospects, non-freshman edition, obviously Jaden Waitens is pretty high on that list. Where's Thomas Houck for you?
Lottery. Probably in the lottery. I think there's some flaws in the profile here. He's not maybe a great shooter, but he's got a lot of tools in his package. And like, he was, if not the best, one of the best players in Florida's title run, obviously behind Walter Clayton Jr. And he's absolutely like just continued where he left off from last season. And, on a team that, like, there's a lot of pieces here. Alex Condon, Boogie Flan, like, I think Hawk has been like the most impactful player for this Florida team and one of the most consistent. And so, like, if Florida's backcourt can step up and Fland and Lee can play to another level, I still believe like this is a Florida team that can win the SEC, but they just have been way inconsistent to start this season. Getting a win Saturday over Tennessee, I think, would go a long ways towards just like regenerating that confidence, because I think the talent on this team is still very, very high. Yeah,
it's interesting because Alex Condon was the preseason All-American, but I think some people, I know it was a pretty common opinion in our college basketball Slack in the preseason was like, Thomas Houck's their best player. I don't care who AP voters voted preseason All-American. Their best player is going to be that guy who was coming off of the bench last season. And I think, however many games we are into this for them, he has emerged as that. But like, Florida has been among the disappointing teams in the country. Like, you get into these conversations sometimes, and St. John's is up there and Kentucky's up there. The highest ranked team in the preseason AP poll that is no longer ranked, that's Florida. It's not St. John's and Kentucky. It's Florida. So I think I'm more out on St. John's now than I am on Florida. But if you are basing disappointment off of preseason poll, are you ranked now? Florida would be the best example of that. And so the issues have been in the backcourt. Like, Condon's been fine. Houck's been great. The front court's, like, was expected to be really good and has been really good, but Boogie Flan's been uneven, and Xavier Lee's been disappointing. They both had nice moments, but not consistently enough to put Florida in any sort of serious back-to-back conversation so far. So we'll see what they do on Saturday. I, like you, will take them to cover this number at home. But if Florida is going to, emerge as a legitimate championship contender, so that we can have serious conversations about them trying to go back-to-back as March approaches, they've got to be better than what they've been, and that probably means that those guards have to be better than what they've been. I gather you got a clock in front of you, so you can see, like, I got another show starting in 5 minutes. So I think we could call it. I think we could call it right here. Norlander has submitted his picks to Josh, and I'm assuming those are going to be on a graphic somewhere you can find on Twitter and other places at some point. So you can see how Norlander would have weighed in on these games on Twitter a little later on today. But if history is any indication of how this is going to go, I'll smoke him again. And then we'll be back here to talk about it on Sunday night. Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle. He's a legend. Huck Barnell. Thank you guys once again for watching the Eye on College Basketball Podcast, listening to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts like Apple and Spotify. There is more of us than there are of them. That should be reflected in the comments. So do that, and we'll be back on Sunday. Kyle Boone, thank you for being here. You're a sweetheart. I appreciate you. We'll be back Sunday night. Till then, take care.